Holy shit.
He
Okay.
showed up in mine. Okay. This guy's everywhere. By the way, I'm MJB2, guys. I just stopped in. I'm just hanging out.
Better believe it.
We've been a bit
Good
all over the
lord.
place.
Okay. I was like trying to find a point to jump in, and I wasn't sure what you guys were talking about or where you were at.
Oh, okay. Hey,
Yeah,
we got a
you can.
couple of more people in here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty cool.
Yeah. So just a
Right
little
now.
bit about myself. So I'm Yang Gang leaning. So that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, nice.
Okay,
You
that'll
say
be an
that like it's
interesting conversation.
you say that like it's cute.
No, sorry, I don't mean it
Oh, the
like that.
$1,000 a month guy. Oh,
It's
great.
no, it's because I get so many people in my chat that either want Biden. I don't see so much. A few
You have
Bernie.
Biden
Oh.
guys on your chat?
I get a lot of Biden guys. Yeah.
I see you got
So
Vote Democrat on here. That dude has been in my channel a number of times. He forgets that he comes to my channel. Is like, Biden's going to be the nominee, and I just go,
Yeah.
nobody wants him. Why would
That is
look at him?
hilarious.
He's practically dying on stage. Like the dude
Stream
is
his
old and tired.
I like
Look,
sending.
if I were you, I'd be pretty happy that Destiny was watching my streams, so I don't know why you're complaining about it. Oh, man.
I mean, I'd be happy if I had more Biden supporters just because I haven't seen any. Like,
Get a vote Democrat.
Like, our stream's been around for a month. I mean, I don't know how many people we've had come through, but we've had one. And the one Biden supporter we've had is 14. It makes nothing
Can't
fucking make sense
Wait,
anymore,
that's
man.
not what I would guess.
No, that's not what I would have guessed either.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I get.
when he's old enough, he can vote for whoever he wants.
I pretty
Thank God
much
he's
get-
not, 18 now, and I'm sorry, Furious. I apologize, man. I know he's watching this from my stream right now, so Furious, I apologize, dude.
So just out of curiosity, why would you support Andrew Yang and not like Mariana Williamson if you're at least going to go down that route?
Well, so first of all, I think those
That's a
are
good
two
question.
very different
Thanks,
things.
Mark.
I think
problem.
healing crystals have very special powers, but
Yeah.
I'd be very scared if she was she had her finger above the nuclear weapon. In fact, what I'd be more scared of is if she wouldn't shoot the nuclear weapon if someone shot one at us. But no, I mean, for me, like with Yang, so when I first heard about the $1,000 a month guy, I thought it was a total, kind of bullshit circus gimmick. Well, I'm Asian American, so when I went to go click on the Yahoo homepage link, and don't tell me why, don't ask me why I still have Yahoo as my homepage.
Oh,
But
good lord.
so I click on him, and it's like he's Asian American, so I'm like, fucking A. It's like, for fuck's sake, it's like the one Asian American guy who decides to run for president. He's like the $1,000 a month guy. And so, as I'm sure you've seen with all the Yang Gang spammers in your Twitter accounts, I watched the Joe Rogan interview, and I was like, man, this guy's pretty thoughtful. He's pretty smart. I mean, the reason why I like him the most is I think he really is identifying the automation issue. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's like, that's why I'm for him more than anything. I think UBI is how it's being paid for. The original version of it was a little sketchy. The original version was actually pretty solid. It has been modified mid-campaign, and I think modifying it was kind of the right move, but a little bit of a hole, a funding hole, if you will. There's a little bit more of the Trump tax plan, like, oh, the GDP is going to grow at 3% forever, and that's how we're going to plug this hole with Trump's tax plan. So the Yang UBI funding has a little bit of that. Still, it's doable. It's definitely doable. So yeah. So I mean, I think he's got the UBI thing, but I think if you are a Democrat, and I don't know which way all you guys lean, but I think with any of these candidates, maybe outside of Bernie, I'm not a Bernie guy at all. I think if it's any other Democratic candidate, lose to Trump. And I think part of it is because they're not tapping into the stuff that Tim Ryan is talking about, which every single Democrat I know, including myself, laughs at Tim Ryan and is wondering when he's going to get off the debate stage. But I think the guy has a real message. He's from Ohio, and there's clearly something or someone or many people or wanted him to run, and it's falling on deaf ears. People are forgetting about, I'll just say it, right? People are forgetting about the white blue collar worker and the Rust Belt, which I grew up in Michigan, and the Democrats are forgetting about those folks, and that's the reason why they lost.
Can I ask you, where'd you grow up in Michigan, real quick?
A southeastern part, Detroit suburbs.
Oh, right on. I'm in Flint.
You're in Flint. Okay, no, that's great. And so yeah, no, I've lived in. I'm a East Coast liberal now. I've lived in California for a couple of years, and then New York City, New York. I'm now in the New York suburbs, but like 20 years since I've been in the Detroit area. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the story. I mean, I think it's as fucked up as it sounds. I think if Yang were to somehow miraculously get the nomination out of Bernie, I think he would actually have the best chance of beating Trump for those reasons. If you ever like decided to go down the path of like checking out the Yang Gang Discord, if you will, I'm telling you, man, it like I've been shocked at how eclectic the group is. Like we have like hardline libertarians in the group, as surprising as that sounds, or Trump MAGA folks in the group. Like, you know, $1,000 a month will attract a lot of different types of people.
I'm gonna do it.
You know, he's an interesting dude. But anyway, I've talked enough. But that's the long form answer as to why I'm for Andrew Yang.
Have you heard any of the pushback on from the left on the freedom stipend?
Yeah, the freedom stipend. I like that.
No, that's what Yang calls it.
The freedom dividend, my friend. The freedom.
Oh, dividend? Oh, I thought it was a stipend. Yeah. My bad.
Dividend is catchier. No, but he actually says that the freedom dividend. It's like his cliche phrase. The freedom dividend, pulled or tested better than UBI. But so basically, the pushback on the left is a couple different things. So one, he's going to fund it with a 10% VAT tax, a value-added tax. Mm-hmm. And people say a value-added tax is regressive.
I mean, it is, that's not my biggest issue 100%. With it.
It is, but then, the counter argument to that is it's regressive by itself, but then when you combine it with UBI for people at lower income levels, it's absolutely progressive. It's actually wealth redistribution in sheep's clothing, if you will.
The thing that makes it regressive is it's taxed on the dividend itself.
What do you mean it's taxed on the dividend itself?
Well, I mean, you're not getting $1,000 a month. You're getting $1,000 minus the taxes that are taken out on it.
As far as I understand it to be, that's an after-tax number.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he want to shut down a lot of social nets and social services in order to get this done?
Yes.
So part of the way that it's funded is, so that's another misnomer.
It's not. I actually posted something in the chat where he actually admits that the end game of the freedom dividend is to get rid of, as he puts it, the $5 billion boondoggle, which he's referring to the budget the budget number for our social safety net system.
Hear me out, okay? So I think part of it is the bureaucracy that he believes exists in government assistance programs. So the idea of it is, if you are on some form of government assistance, you will basically choose between that or $1,000 a month. But you can absolutely stay on the government assistance if you want. As far as I understand, if you decide to go onto the freedom dividend of $1,000 a month and you realize after 6 months you're better off before, you can absolutely go back to that. So then
what good is the dividend then? If everyone decides that they're better off to have the social safety net, which
well, who's everyone? Why
and also why the better question is the better question is why make them choose?
Because there are some folks that less than $1,000 a month in terms of value. So if you're only getting $500 worth of benefits, why wouldn't you take $1,000 a month in cash, where you don't have to go down to talk to someone, wait in line, go through the bureaucracy of proving why you deserve this and why you still qualify for it? Again, it's their choice, but it's just to me, it seems like a no-brainer
Well,
to
yeah,
at least
but
have the option.
why not both?
What do you mean, why not both?
Why not have both?
I think the reason for not both is because the amount of money it would cost to maintain both
Yeah,
of them.
I mean that's part of the way it's funded.
Not necessarily. If it's funded properly.
Well,
You
I mean,
can-
I'm
you can
guessing
do
you're
it.
here's
getting
the
rid
question:
of
how
the
would
military
you?
paychecks, right?
So, what would you do to fund both?
Well, I mean, we already fund our social safety net already pretty well. It's very lacking in my opinion.
So UBI is going to cost $2.5 trillion. By giving people the option between the two, assuming there are some people that decide to stay on, and some for the folks that do decide to go into UBI, for $600 million. So there's still this, if you want to plug the other half of that or whatever it is for the people that decide to stay on, like again, how would you fund it?
I mean, the more expensive program is the UBI, so more to the point, if we're going to talk about funding, how are we going to fund the UBI? But
I'll tell you how
more so the thing about the because I know you said the VAT tax and everything like that, and I understand that, but the big thing with it is if we can have one, we can then have both. The idea of making people choose, because that $1,000 a month, if somebody who used to be on food stamps decides to go ahead and take the dividend, is going to go towards bills as opposed to food, which still leaves a food deficit.
They can choose whatever they want to spend it on. I mean, they can choose it on food. They can choose to spend it on bills. They can. I mean, again, it's one of those things where. So again, it how you view where this Andrew Yang guy is coming from. If you feel like his main goal is this is a Trojan horse into fucking over everyone who's on government assistance, then yeah, I can understand where your concerns are coming from. And I
wouldn't put it in those
way at all.
I wouldn't put it in those exact words.
Kind of where it's coming from, and I get it. Like if you distrust politicians, I can understand where that might come from. But I think let me just finish this one point.
Okay, sorry.
So his whole thing is, and he said this many times, the goal is not to make anyone worse off, especially those who are in marginalized communities who are on government assistance. And so he's updated throughout the campaign, he's updated things based off of feedback he's gotten from folks. So one of the challenges, and I thought you were going to go there with this, but I thought you were going to say, well, if you were to choose stay on government assistance, well, you have this 10% VAT, this potential inflation that's going to come from this UBI that gets pumped in the system. So those folks that decide to stay on government assistance are going to get screwed due to the inflation that's going to occur. So they're going to get less on a real basis. He's changed midstream and said, you know what, you are right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gross up those government assistance benefits for those folks. So if the inflation from UBI and VAT, 5%, if it ends up being 15%, I will make sure their benefits go up by that amount. So the other feedback he got was for older folks on Social Security. I'm paying into Social Security. That's my money. I've been paying the Social Security tax my whole life. Why do I get fucked out of that? And he basically said, you know what? You're right. That is your money. You have been paying to that. And so mid-campaign, he basically changed and said, okay, on top of Social Security, the final piece is veterans on veteran disability. They basically made the point, I fought for my country. Like, if I'm on veteran disability, obviously, I paid the price for my country. And then he said, so UBI will stack on top of veteran disability. So he has changed it, changed a lot of things, mid-campaign. But again, I think the spirit of it is he's just he wants to make sure that no one is left worse off.
So why would you focus on UBI as opposed to something that would probably help people in the US much more immediately, such as free healthcare?
He is for free healthcare.
Is he? Like universal free healthcare, like Bernie Sanders is proposing?
Yes.
No,
It's not his flagship platform, and I'll be 100. So let me just take a step back. Like, I say this on my stream all the time. Like, the one thing I cannot stand on the left or the right is when people pick their guy, whether it's Trump or whether it's Bernie or whoever it might be. Treat these guys like Jesus, and we pretend they walk on water and they can do no wrong. You know, I have my criticisms for sure, and I will always bring up my criticism about Yang and his policies if I see one. You can hear it on my stream all the time. And so I would say on healthcare or healthcare for all, he is absolutely for it. I think he needs to do some more work in terms of, you know, outline the plan in terms of how it's paid for. But that being said, I also say that he needs to do more work in that area and talk about how it's paid for, you know, especially given, you know, I think debate number one, Bernie got the question about middle class, you know, will taxes go up on the middle class? And people are asking that because they know what the answer is. They will go up on the middle class if you looked at his plan, at least from 2016. And he avoided the question. And to be fair, Bernie is a great guy. I mean, he's as authentic and as transparent as it comes. Finally said, he's like, yes, taxes will go up on the middle class. And a lot of people were kind of trying to figure out why his poll numbers were dropping after debate number one. Me personally, I think that was the moment why his poll numbers were dropping. But he's no different than any other candidate. He's just the only one that's willing to be honest about it. So.
I mean, I will say that Bernie just needs to flat out say that yes, they're going to pay more,
Yes.
you know, in taxes. But you know, the way he needs to couple it is to concisely say, and this is the point that he's been making on the road, but for some reason he doesn't make it on the debate stage. You'll pay more in taxes, but overall it's going to replace and be less than what you would pay for healthcare and health insurance overall, especially if you include things like your co-pays and all that, because there's no co-pays under his Medicare for All proposal. I'm having a hard time finding where Yang is saying he's. I'm on his website. He's very vague about where he stands on a Medicare for All system.
If you look at
what
his
that
policies,
means.
he does say it. He does say it in his policy page. There's more detail behind it for sure.
Yeah. Yes, I did burp, and yes, I admit it. I've been drinking Dr. Pepper. I got called out in my chat by Josiah.
Well, my chat is basically they know that before I got on here, I've been basically cleaned off a bottle of wine, so people are yelling at me not to debate and to drink and debate at the same time. But it's too late. So.
It's like drinking and driving. Oh my god.
If you guys are wondering why why Andrew Yang was long form, that's actually the secret reason why. it's the Pinot Noir speaking, my friends.
Yeah, I'm just having a hard time. Yeah, he does need to make that case and explain because like a lot of these candidates say Medicare for all, and usually what they mean is like something way different than what I would imagine Medicare for all to be defined as. Because to me, it's literally we're all on the Medicare payment plan, you know.
And can I just say this? I mean, this is like one of those things where, like, if we just step out of the box and forget about the candidates that we're supporting, whether we're left or the right, like even Trump's tax plan, like all these ideas, they're big fucking ideas. Like at the end of the day, right? Like it's a big fucking idea. Universal health care for this many people is a big fucking idea, which I agree with, by the way.
Yeah.
UBI is a big fucking idea.
That's
we're
the same.
The only country where it's like, oh, we just got to dive right into this. Like, hopefully,
that's the same link I have opened up, Jimmy.
Like, the reality is if we're really trying to create a better in the country, like we should be testing this stuff like every other kind of these smaller countries, right? These smaller, less developed countries that actually decide to test out some of these wacky ideas. Like that's what we should be doing. But unfortunately, that's not where we're at. You know?
Yeah.
There's still no reason why we can't get it done, though. Because, I mean, we are so far behind. We are so far behind every developed nation in the world. We have the worst healthcare among all the developed nations. It's embarrassing.
100%. Well, I don't know if we have the worst healthcare, but
yeah, I'm gonna double check that. I mean,
it's been rated. Yeah, we are the worst of developed nations. I can
how
find
do you
them.
measure that? I don't know if that's true.
I think it's about the out of
Outcomes.
service, waiting times.
Waiting times
Outcomes.
and that kind of thing. Gotcha.
Outcomes is the big thing.
You have the worst outcomes?
Yes.
Is that right?
Of the developed world, yes.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
I gotta look that up. I'm surprised by that statistic. To be honest
Yeah,
with you.
I'm gonna.
Here, I can find it real quick.
Anyway, what else do you guys want to know about Yang? You want to know about the?
Okay, let me ask you this.
I want to get rid of the penny.
Okay, so honestly, I look at Yang. Same with what's her name? Pamela Harris. Is she the one that's like really anti-war? Who's a really anti-war person?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. I look at Yang.
And that's
Tulsi
debatable.
Gabbard
That's
as
very
like
debatable.
We actually did a decent. I can talk about Tulsi a little bit. We did some work on her because this guy, I didn't understand. We can go into like the whole Assad thing. I think I've kind of understand at least what.
There's a weird delay
Yeah,
on my camera. I don't know if it's showing up with my audio. Anyway, is my audio matching up with my camera on stream?
Put them in the same bucket.
Yeah, I put them in the same bucket when it comes to like a topic candidate. Like, I don't think they or anybody else really thinks they're going to get the candidacy and actually going to run against Trump for become the president, but rather they're there to tell the Democratic Party of what kind of things we're interested in.
That might still be important, though.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not.
So
I guess.
Do you see someone like Bernie as that, or?
Yeah. Do you think?
Not Bernie. Bernie, okay. Warren. I think Beto's a joke.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God, he's a joke.
But here's the thing, right? If you look at the last several set of presidents outside the Bushes, but going back to Clinton, Skip, George Bush Jr., and then and then if you go to Obama, and then Trump, like what were they polling at this point in time during their respective primaries? They were polling very, very low.
That's true.
I think Trump was number one through most of the time.
No, not early on in the campaign.
Oh well, I mean, really early, before the debates, which we're already in debate time right now.
Right, but I mean, Trump. Yeah, go ahead.
Trump was actually polling pretty well, but I mean, we could get into like a lot with that. I mean, like the Pied Piper strategy and all that nonsense that just. Ugh. But I mean, I kind of always knew that the perfect Republican would be Trump.
What do you mean by that?
He embodies everything that the Republican Party has been leading towards for the past 30, 40 years.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so at all. I think he actually, the reason why he won was the points where he actually went away from the Republican Party. So he basically stole Bernie's cliff notes against Hillary, said what's working against Hillary? She is a corporate person, she's anti-union. And so that whole anti-union, let's have a lot of economic angst about what the economy is doing for us. Let me tie that into my immigration reform policy. And he ran with it. And really, I mean, look, if you look at the swing states he won, those are all union manufacturing states. A lot of those unions, for the first time, even though the unions may have endorse Hillary in the way that they have most other Democratic candidates. If you look at their constituents, a lot of those folks voted for Trump.
If you want to talk about like the perfect Republican candidate in 2016, it would have been Jeb Bush.
No, that's right.
Not where the party was heading. Because he was closer to a moderating force within the Republican Party, and they were largely pushing, especially after Obama, they were largely pushing further and further and further to the right.
Well, you could say the voter base, but I don't think the leadership was.
To me,
I mean,
it was Ted Cruz who got second place on the debate stage. Do you think he was not like party?
Oh no, the party hates him.
He's not moderating though.
What?
He's not a moderate, though. He's not a moderate in the Republican Party. He's actually pretty far right.
Well, I mean, that doesn't even really matter when it comes to, like, leadership deals. Like, if the Republican Party likes you, it's because you can stay in line and listen to what the leadership wants to do. Ted Cruz, especially since senatorial days and still a senator, he constantly goes against what the party wants to get done. The party leadership.
I mean, to me at the time, 2016, the embodiment of the party at the time, excluding Trump, which was a new phenomenon, was Paul Ryan. I mean, right, like right after Trump got elected after year one, I mean, he essentially let Paul Ryan take the first crack at doing writing tax reform, and it ended up being super shitty because he put out this. Ironically enough, he basically put in a baked-in tariff into the original tax reform policy 1.0 and is puked on by Trump and everyone else. But anyway, I think it was Ryan. I think he was the guy who embodied the Republican Party at the time.
No, he was. I mean, he is pretty right wing too, but he's more aligned with Cruz than anything. He'd like to avoid the culture war stuff, but which Trump fully buried himself into.
And that's why the voter base liked him, the Republican, but not the leadership.
Yeah, because he had buried himself in the culture war. But I mean, policy-wise, there's kind of no daylight between any of them because they all would have passed the same tax cuts. They all would have pushed deregulation. I don't know if they pushed the deregulation as fast as Trump has. He's been very effective in getting rid of the regulatory state, which, oh boy, we're going to be seeing the repercussions of that pretty soon. But, that's no different. The big things that really make him different are the child detention centers, his trade wars.
The child detention centers were there during Obama's presidency.
Okay, do I really have to go down this road again?
Well, I mean, I'm not on your stream, so
Well,
yeah, or do whatever you want. Sorry, I should.
I'll go ahead and try to explain it really quick. Okay, so what those child detention centers were under Obama were basically places where they held children who actually did pass across the border without their parents. It was in very few numbers, nowhere near the amount that we have now. There was no child separation. And a lot of those centers also held entire families together rather than what we're doing now.
So if that's all true, then why were the actual areas so shitty if they didn't have to care with as many people?
I mean, it's been a little bit since Obama was there. They were made shitty by the treatment of the people within there. Packing all those people in. Increasing the numbers tenfold and throwing them all in the same spot can have a really dramatic effect if you haven't increased the size of the actual place.
Well, that's the thing. It seems like when I look at comparisons between the two when it comes to detention centers under Trump and under Obama, it looks like the Obama ones were shittier, even though they had to deal with less people.
I mean, it's a lot more accommodating.
How do you tell? How can you even tell that? Like, what's the data that you have?
What are you quoting from?
So it's not really beta days. I'll give you, but it's just based on the photos that were provided through the media where they claimed it was under the Trump presidency, and then actual research is done, and they realize, hey, this was actually taken back at the Obama agency. Then when you look at the different interviews and when they walk into the facilities, which you can see, it just looks.
Do you have a source for that?
Don't you think that there's a chance? I mean, like, look, I get it. Like, if you're watching MSNBC, it's going to be left tinged, and if you're watching Fox News, it's going to be right tinged, like photographs and interviews, like, right? Like, it's you're kind of going to this dangerous place where you're just walking into an echo chamber, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, when they give the example of like the absolute worst that they could find to describe Trump's detention centers. When they actually did some research, I'm not saying the source who provided it would be like people on Twitter.
But I'm saying, like, if you're talking
the Obama
to like
era.
The people in immigration control right now, it's like, I mean, what are they going to say against Trump? They're being employed by the current administration, right? I'm just like, I'm not saying you're wrong at all. I'm not saying you're right either. I'm just saying it's it's tough to kind of go. By the way, can we just? I apologize. Do you guys mind like just saying like which politically how you lean? I don't like, besides the right side of history, which by the way is a fucking very clever, awesome username.
No,
I don't
it's really
know where
not.
anyone else like lies.
Look, I'm just gonna speak a little bit. It's a horrible name. I wish I didn't do it because Ben Shapiro has a book under that name,
Oh
and
yeah.
because of that, I'm never gonna be in the Google results. It's just gonna be his book.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that is tough, actually.
Yeah, that does
If
suck,
you,
man.
Well, you're
That's immediately what I went to too.
talking to the guy who named himself MJB2, so cry me a river. But anyway, where do you guys, if you don't mind me asking, like, where do you guys lean? I have no idea. Like, I don't really know where you guys are coming from.
I've not been talking much, but I'm an English socialist, so I'm not American. But I
Socialist?
consider myself a socialist. Generally speaking, yes.
I'm a sock down.
Levelier?
True leveler. It's actually
Leveler.
an epic reference to something in history.
Gotcha. I thought there was an I in there. My apologies.
Okay.
No, the levelers were a group during the English Civil War. They wanted to level people in the sense that they wanted to make people equal, and this was in the 1600s. So it was a pretty radical ideology at the time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I can
Wow.
talk more about it, but it's such a divergence, and you're kind of debating the other stuff. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah. I label myself as a progressive. Like, I actually like volunteer for Indian Democrats, as small as we are.
Mhm.
A lot of people that have been coming in chat have been telling me I'm center. I think people get the idea that I'm center because I try to be open towards like both sides.
Mhm.
So like when I like get viewers in to talk about, I try to make sure I get like a left and a right leaner. We had somebody who was posting a lot of like pro-communism videos because we went through that today. And
Gotcha.
someone posted like a Jordan Peterson one, which I didn't want to go through, but I felt like I needed to represent the other side somehow. So
Yeah, Peterson is a lot of wordy to basically say what he could say in like 5 easy sentences.
yeah,
And being vague.
What about Marc Monkey and Frozen Harlequin?
I am a sock down, social democrat or democratic socialist, whichever way you want to define that.
And so, are you Bernie or Warren? What flavor are you?
Well, Warren is actually more of a liberal progressive. I'm definitely Bernie.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm not eligible to vote in the US, obviously, but if I was,
Who'd
I
you
would
vote for?
support Bernie Sanders. Is the one I would support based off everything I'd seen. So,
Are you a Corbyn supporter? I'm wondering.
yes and no to an extent. It depends.
Yeah, I know he goes back and forth, but yeah, definitely better than Boris Johnson. But you have my sympathy for that. But also, we're here too, so can't say too much.
I agree with most of Corbyn's policy positions, but I don't think that he presents himself very well. But that's kind of like aesthetics and optics. That's just about how you get elected. It's not about like what you actually believe.
That's
so
true.
I'm gonna guess you agree more with Corbyn than you do Nigel.
Yeah, Nigel Farage is many things, but not a trustworthy person.
One thing I get hung up on is who would be worse, Nigel Farage or Boris Johnson?
Well, because of the way that kind of like our political system works, there's no chance that Nigel Farage would ever be prime minister. But
that's true, and also good.
But basically, his job is to exert pressure on Boris Johnson to try and swing the Conservative Party more to the right, and he's very good at what he does. You know, he's probably one of the most effective political operators this country has seen in the last 30 years. You know, he's succeeded at basically everything he's wanted. So fair play to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could talk a bit more about it, I guess, but it's kind of, I don't know how interesting it is for Americans to hear about, because you're kind of on your own topic at the moment.
I hear a little bit about it from the Majority Report, and Michael Brooks' show does a lot of breakdowns of a lot of international politics. Michael Brooks' show is a lot about Brazil, is his pet project to talk about a lot. But I do hear a lot of things about the British elections and stuff like that. I find some of that interesting.
There's kind of a lot of speculation. Just real quick, there's kind of a lot of speculation going on at the moment because Parliament isn't actually meeting right now. So there's just a lot of noise because nobody can actually do anything, so people are just talking about doing things. So you won't find out anything.
That's perfect
new
for
until
Boris
September.
Johnson.
Yeah, kind of.
He loves to talk, and he does it so well. Says such great things.
But basically, don't expect
Yeah.
anything to happen until September. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, okay.
I really
That's
like
fair.
watching TLDR news for British news related to politics.
I've seen his videos a couple times, but I don't really watch that sort. I don't really go into that in for that sort of thing. So,
Bit too boring.
Nah, I get my news from elsewhere. I just read all the newspapers and I try and read other things as well. I mean, obviously though, that's a bit easier when you live in the country, right? Like, yeah. If you wanna find out things about Britain, it's not very hard to do when you're actually in Britain. But yeah, that's kind of like that. Oh, I if it matters, I also voted Remain in the referendum.
Fair enough. I kind of figured that.
By the way, what is like the consensus there right now? I mean, with all the fears about kind of hard exit, like is there like are people like do you feel like people are getting second thoughts, or is it kind of like the US where people who voted for Brexit, after being told, I mean, they're idiots, are digging their heels in. That's what I feel like, the dynamic that we get in the US with the folks that went over to Trump. Not saying that they were idiots, but just saying that the way that they are categorized and approached by the Democrats, I think the Democrats are making a mistake. I feel like you don't give folks a bridge back over to vote against Trump. You make them more determined to prove that they did not make a mistake. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I feel like there's a hardcore people who it doesn't really matter what happens, that they if anything bad happens, then it was somebody else's fault anyway.
Gotcha.
So it'll quickly turn out that the reason why Brexit was bad wasn't because of the Brexit people supporting it. It was actually because the EU wasn't negotiating with us fairly. It was because the Remainers sabotaged our attempts to negotiate properly. So for at least those, like, I'd say this is an incredibly small amount of people, though I don't think there are many people like this. I think for most Brexiteers, and I'd say for most Remainers as well, frankly, I think most people just don't care about it anymore because it's been going on for 3 years now, and you just kind of get used to it. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh God, I know that.
Do you think there's any chance of it just being dropped though?
No, I think no deal's going to happen.
It's too late. It's too late.
It's not too late. It's not too late, but I think it will happen because I think that basically, kind of like you're talking about the Democrats not approaching this the correct way, I don't think that the people on the Remain side actually know how to stop this. They do have the abilities to stop it, but they won't be able to because they won't be able to work together. And so it'll happen, and then there'll be a lot of kind of like purging and recrimination on the Remain side. Everybody will be blaming each other for no deal.
It seems like the social Dems will be the one to gain that victory.
The Lib Dems.
Yeah, the Lib Dems. Sorry.
That's all right. The Lib Dems have kind of put their foot into their mouth recently because basically Corbyn came out and said that he wanted to. This is kind of complicated. It's a bit about how Parliament works, but they're talking about calling a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson's government at the moment, right? So they want to have a vote of no confidence in his government, and with the help of Conservative Remainers, they're hoping that they can topple Boris Johnson's government and then cause a general election. But if they did that, then during the time when the general election was being organised to when it was held, the no deal Brexit timeline would still be ticking on, and so no deal would happen like halfway through the election, and nobody would have a chance to stop it. So what Corbyn basically said was, if we vote no confidence in Boris Johnson, then I want the opposition parties and the Remainer Tories who want to stop no deal to then vote confidence in me, making me the Prime Minister so that I can then stop no deal and then have a general election after that. And this is the reason why I don't think that no deal will be stopped, because in order to stop it, they need to vote confidence in Jeremy Corbyn or somebody else, and they won't be able to agree who they should vote confidence in, because the Liberal Democrats have spent this entire time saying that they're the true Remain party. They're the party of actually remaining. Jeremy Corbyn is like lying about remaining, or he's lying about Brexit. So if you vote for Corbyn, you're voting for Brexit, and that's the reason you're supposed to vote for the Liberal Democrats. But if they then help Corbyn to stop Brexit, then that kind of defeats their entire campaign. So almost immediately after Corbyn said this, they came out and said, "We're not going to talk to you about this. We're not going to support you in this." And then they got such a backlash from this, from people who just want Brexit to not happen, that they said, "Okay, we'll discuss it and we'll have talks about it." But I don't think it's going to happen because of that. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to agree on who should be in charge of such a government. So it's a waste of time. So I think there'll be a general election soon, and it could go like a couple of different ways. It's all kind of all over the place though.
Here's a question in hindsight, right? Like lessons learned
Yeah.
from where you're at. Do you feel like we talked about how Dems might be approaching in the wrong way? Essentially, again, that's what I believe. Like, we're not building a bridge for them to come back over.
Well, I know you actually talked about how you'd support Andrew Yang, but I'd actually think that Bernie Sanders has the best chance of bringing over people like that. And
yeah.
I don't say this as an American, obviously, so I don't know a lot about how American culture is necessarily and how Americans are.
Very right.
Yeah, but I do live in a very poor part of this country. Like, I know I've been told I sound really posh, right? So I'm sorry, I'm not actually posh. Like 70% of the people who live where I live voted to leave the EU. Like, I live in a very kind of poor sort of area. And what you often find is that actually there is just a large group of people who have incredibly left-wing economics, but then they have other views, or they have like weird priorities in other ways that kind of cloud that. So I think that if you want to build a bridge to these people, then you need to be presenting something that kind of materially benefits them. And obviously you would say that UBI would be this thing, right? That's kind of like Andrew Yang's appeal. He's going to reach out and help these people in poorer communities by giving them the money that they need in order to be able to live properly. But I would say that I think something like healthcare as a priority, and obviously you said that Andrew Yang also supports this, but as a central plank, it's a much more important thing for a lot of people. And it's kind of how you frame it as well. But again, I can't say because I'm not American, so I don't really know that much about it.
I mean, I think my counter to that, and the reason why I think you're seeing, again, I mean, look, I'm real, right? Like, Andrew Yang is calling 2% right now. But at the end of the day, like, he has a significant amount of crossover supporters. And I do think once the field whittles down, you're going to see, I'm managing my expectations. I don't think he's going to win, but I think he's going to surprise a lot of fucking people. Top 5 finishes, I think, very, very much in the cards. And I think when you are arguing so countering to your point, when you go to folks who are on the lower end of the income scale and you say, "Hey, I'm telling you, we have this healthcare plan. It's going to be great," and then you have people on the other side of their ear saying, "No, that's not true." Like, for the guy that's making $40,000 a year, and his wife is stay at home, but you have healthcare benefits. This is going to ruin that. It's going to fuck shit up. Like, it's hard, right? It's hard for anyone, whether you're upper class or lower class. Like, healthcare is just really hard to understand, like, how things are going to fall out at the end of the day. But I feel like the reason why Yang has so many crossover supporters is, like, you just can't fuck around with $1,000, right? Yeah. Like, people can say, like, "Oh, we got this new tax plan. I'm telling you is going to help." Or Kamala's whatever $500 a month plan. You have to have, like, red hair with blue eyes, and if you can rub your tummy and pat your head at the same time, you may qualify. Like, this is just $1,000 a month. And when he says everyone gets it, and the pushback is always like, "Well, you want to give it to Bezos? You want to give it to these other guys?" The point of it is like, he just doesn't. If you allow everyone to have it, you'll have the least amount of pushback, and you'll get it through. And yes, is it worth, like, increasing the cost of the entire program by the 1% getting it? Absolutely. If you can get, if you have everyone get it. So I feel like that's why I feel like that will resonate with folks. I mean, I'm telling you right now, like, I complain. I am a absolute left-leaning person, and when I go on the official Yang Discord and the general chat, like, I complain sometimes. Like, it's fucking, like, I've never been on 4chan, but my worst nightmare of my nightmare version of what 4chan is like sometimes at 3 a.m. in the Yang Discord chat at 3 a.m. That's what it kind of seems like. Although shout out to those mods, they do a good job cleaning it up. But I do think $1,000 a month will attract people from across the aisle for sure, especially those folks that we're talking about right here that you're calling out.
I'll say
People and
something.
folks in the
I'll say
UK.
something. I'll say something nice about Andrew Yang if you want.
Oh, hit me, man! I need it.
It doesn't actually matter whether he wins or not. It doesn't matter whether he gets the nomination. The fact that he's stood on the platform that he stood on has created an important conversation about the future.
Absolutely.
That's
The fact
true.
that people are talking about these ideas is also important because the issue of automation is something that will need to be dealt with. And it might not be that universal basic income is the way to resolve it, but the fact that he's actually stood on stage and talked about something, because you look at the Democratic debates and you've got all those people on stage, and about 5 of them on that stage are basically just identikit copies of each other. There's like no difference between them. It's like trying to stick a piece of paper between the bricks and the pyramids. You just can't do it because they're so close together. Like Andrew Yang
100%.
and Mariana Williamson to an extent as well. I memed about her earlier, but she's also raised some things that nobody else has raised. They've actually talked about things that nobody else is talking about. So, in that respect, that's also important. So yeah, that's the nice thing to say about it.
It's been
Go
swell,
ahead.
guys. I gotta go. I hope you enjoy the rest of your chat.
All right, I'm sorry.
Thanks
This
for
is
it,
boring.
we like shout out your channel or something?
Oh yeah, twitch.tv/right side of history.
Oh, that's easy enough. Okay.
All right, we'll see you around, man.
All right.
See
you
ya.
guys
Thanks.
enjoy.
Man, nice to speak to you. To your point, true. I see this in my stream all the time. Like, I think it's a shame that Democrats have not picked up on this automation thing. Like, even if you disagree with them, I'm shocked that the other candidates have not said, hey, you know what, that's a great idea. Like, we should actually talk about that more. Because even if you don't believe in UBI, forget about UBI for a second. Like, my whole point is when you go to the Rust Belt, who says, hey, I am white, I am blue collar, I lost my job 5 years ago, I can't get anything close to what I had before. And I don't know why, but Trump is telling me it's the immigrants. And I don't want to believe that. I believe that I haven't done anything wrong. I've worked my butt off, but I can't, the economy has left me behind. So if the only answer I have is immigrants, then you know what? There's a good chance you might lean towards that. And so if you can go to that person, the Democrats, what they're doing right now is saying, no, it's not immigrants. It's not immigrants. We promise you it's not immigrants. They're not the ones that are causing the problems. We don't really want to tell you we don't really know what it is, but it's not immigrants. That's all we can tell you. If they came and say, no, it's not immigrants, it's automation, like Andrew Yang should not have a monopoly.
I haven't said anything in
it's a basic
long
rule, right? Like,
time.
people should pick up on it. Like, it's just crazy to me that they don't.
I'm trying to find my point.
You make a good point if I'm understanding it right, because it kind of different target for like people are kind of upset with losing their jobs as they should be. But it's a different and maybe better target than looking at immigrants for losing their jobs.
Absolutely.
Dude, one thing I did want to point out is I'm not at all shocked that there's right-wingers and libertarians in the Yang circles, because there is a lot of thought on the libertarian side that something like a libertarian UBI, which Yang's version is in a lot of ways, would achieve their goal of getting rid of the
Doing away with all
social.
government assistance programs.
Yes.
Trust. So here's the thing. If you would ask me this question or a week ago, I would have said, I'm sure there's some of that, but I don't think it's that big of a contingent. And I met a guy who was a Yang Gang dude, another streamer, and I did a joint chat stream with him. And he's a great guy. He's a smart guy. But I quickly realized after the first couple of minutes that he is like a hardline libertarian, which, I've now kind of realized like it's one of my least favorite flavors of Republicans.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
they're silly.
I had to correct him, and he said, look, he was disagreeing with me and saying that, like, no, once these guys, these folks that are on government assistance, once they choose UBI, they cannot go back. And I disagree with him on that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
well,
I don't know. I still stand on the ground that it's too sketchy an idea to not offer them alongside of government assistance. I mean, if you're going to give it to everybody, give it to everybody. Why add this caveat of, well, you can choose to be on government assistance or the $1,000 a month. I mean, if you're going to provide it, why not just provide it? And to that extent, why do the VAT tax, and why not do like what Bernie has proposed to pay for Medicare for all, like a Wall Street investment tax or speculation tax?
Is that? But here's the thing: what is that speculation tax?
I'm sorry?
I mean, it's safe to say, what is that speculation tax? He wants to tax 0.5% on every transaction. I'm telling you right now, that is no bueno.
No, I'm getting it.
Why not?
And it's not just about, it's because okay, if you want to take a step back, right? When people invest in stocks, they're looking for a return on their money. When people invest in bonds, they're looking for a return on their money, right? When people invest in the savings accounts, they're looking for a return on their money. And if the return are automatically thumped based off of transactions. So it's one thing to say we're only going to tax your gains. It's another thing to say we are going to tax you regardless of whether or not you made money or not on this deal. And it doesn't matter if it's a 401k, it doesn't matter if it's a teacher pensions fund, it doesn't matter if it's some rich Wall Street douchebag tycoon. We're going to tax you regardless of whether you make money or not. It will decrease the flow of capital into these types of investments. And again,
how would it decrease flow of capital when they would still?
Because you're not going to make as much money. It's like if
they would.
It's just like anything.
This
if
sounds.
I were to say, hey, I have this savings plan at this bank that's going to give you. No, just using extremes. If I have this bank, they have a savings account that's going to give you 1%, and I have another savings account that's going to give you 5%. Like, where's all the money going to run to?
I don't think it will make a difference at all because it's essentially the right-wing talking point of rich people, if they're taxed enough, will just choose to not be rich. They're not going to do that. Their source of it.
Nothing to do with that. So you're saying they're not going to be rich. I'm saying.
No, I'm saying.
On
hang on.
They will invest less in stock transactions and put their money in other places. Not going to choose not to be rich.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they would essentially choose to not take in their highest point of income because of a small tax. That's simply not true. They're still going to do what they already do. It's just they're going to bitch and moan about a tax. It's not going to mean that they're going to pull away. They're not going to stop investing. That 0.5% or whatever isn't going to hurt them that much when it comes back to it. It's still going to be paid. And they're still going to invest in the Wall Street because that's where they make their money. That's why I say the statement of, well, they're just going to choose to not be rich because it's too inconvenient because of too many taxes. It wouldn't be. They'd still want to be rich. They'd still want to make their money.
Okay,
they would just have a tax.
Okay, I want to interrupt for a second because we do have another streamer who just jumped in.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, the Middle American.
Welcome.
Apparently some of my viewers have been like long-term fans of him. Middle, it looks like your mic might be muted. Or if you're just not ready to talk yet, then too.
Yeah, I turned myself off.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you got a chance to say hi and introduce yourself.
Thanks, yeah. Well, first time here. Hello to everyone.
Hi.
I'm just kind of chilling and listening in on the conversation for now. I don't have anything to input at the moment.
No, it's cool. One thing I want to ask about, I think MJ brought, you said you think Yang will 5 for the Democrats. Do you think all four? Yeah. Do you think all 4 of the big ones right now are going to stick it out to the end, or do you think one of them might have a fallout?
Biden obviously is going to be there to the end. Warren, based on the polling numbers, should be there to the end. The question is again with Bernie and Warren, right? So what, Warren's at 20, Bernie's in kind of the mid-teens, depending on which poll you look at. And so they're clearly, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of overlap between their base, at least in terms of who the second choice might be.
Yeah, I think so too.
So the question is if Warren extends the lead 5 and it all comes out of Bernie's numbers, so then Bernie goes to the low teens. And I'm not saying this is for sure what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. But it's vice versa too. What if Bernie goes to 25, the opposite of
Warren? That's the point I was trying to make. I think it kind of went over his head a little bit, but
I don't know.
You know,
I mean, when I talk
Yang
to people,
Gang is,
I think most people just assume
drugs.
Bernie is going to stick it in, stick to it till the end.
What do you got on your mind?
Like
Stick
I said,
it
I had
in.
a full bottle of wine, dude.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Getting dirty in here. Ooh.
Exactly.
Didn't know it was
So
gonna be
then,
that kind of stream.
all right, can we focus?
Sorry.
So then it gets us to Kamala, and Kamala is like, look, I mean, after her first debate, I mean, the writing was on the wall. Like, you can't run as a you can't be a public prosecutor and run for nomination on the
At least
Democratic side
not a
in
tough
this
on
political
crime
climate.
one.
Too much. Like, look, even if she was a totally perfectly like moral public prosecutor, there's just too much. You just have too much history. There's just too many things to pick apart by you just doing your job. I mean, that's the reality. Like, right? That's why you don't see. Like, I can't. When was the last time there was a public prosecutor that got the Democratic nomination? I can't think of one. Tough people are always going to pick something apart. Like, you put this person in jail, you put that person in jail, and on top of that, most people from California think she kind of went above those. You know, her moral compass wasn't great in a lot of decisions. So I think there's a chance that she's not going to be there till the end. I think she's going to continue to get eviscerated. Kind of got a lot of credit for her performance in debate 2, but to me it was like it was more a shame on you to the other campaigns for not playing anything more than checkers and saying, oh, instead of attacking Biden like everyone else is going to do, maybe we should attack the number two person who actually has a lot of baggage that we can attack. Tulsi did it, and although it doesn't seem like she's getting a bump in her numbers, at least she came out of the debate thinking with a lot of people thinking she had a good performance. So I think it'll kind of be the same 5. Mayor Pete, it's like he's had the thing that scares me about it is that he's had a lot of great performances, and it just his poll numbers haven't moved,
and it always backfires on Biden because of
Booker is kind of
his history with the crime bill and all that.
Good performances, but his numbers haven't moved. So I think we're kind of looking at it's the same. If I'm saying Yang is in the top 5, it's going to be the front 4 in front of him, like the same 4.
I think that
go ahead.
I think that it's going to be. I think Yang has the possibility of making the top 5. I do kind of agree with that. He might edge it out. But Kamala is such an interesting case because, like, on the debate stage, she sounds really good, and then she gets off and she takes everything back. That's why no one really is like the people that are falling for her are voting for her based solely on identity and nothing else. They're not recognizing the big problems with her, and they're glaring.
She's a moderate. I mean, she's really a sexy version of Biden. That's it. And I mean, when I say sexy, I mean like
sexy Biden.
Exotic version.
You know what? I'll throw that out there. It's fine. She's a sexy version of Biden. Like, right? She's a POC. She's a female. She's younger. She is. She's not the super old. Pardon me, like this super old establishment looking dude. You can take code for that for whatever, but that's just not. The whole Biden thing is also kind of weird to me. Like,
oh God, yeah. I'm
a little bit older, right? So I'm 41. I'm sure you guys. I mean, at least Leon looks pretty young. I don't know about you, though. You guys sound not young in terms of your views, but young just in terms of your voice.
I didn't even take it that way.
I'm not young.
Oh, you're not young. Okay. Well,
what do you consider young?
I kind of want to hear what you have to say about this because, to me, like what's happened to Biden, like, when Obama named him as VP, everyone's like, that's a fucking great choice, solid choice. Get over the aisle. Everyone loves good old Joe. And even while I was with Obama, he was kind of good old Joe. Yes, he was prone to, maybe saying an off the cuff remark. I mean, I get it. Like, he's boring. Like, if you're looking for change, he's not your guy. But like, and I'm not saying that there's absolutely no merit to some of the criticisms he's gotten, but he went from good old Joe within 2 months to basically being this pedo, not pedo, but like molester, like racist. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, it really is crazy.
It's a lot of the same things that came up in every single other time he's ran for office. I mean, he was a plagiarist. That kicked him out of one of his runnings. Now because we've embraced more progressive or left-leaning politics, the fact that he supported the crime bill is a huge problem for him. And the fact that he still defends it.
Didn't the crime bill include this assault weapons ban?
Huh?
Like, a lot of people don't talk about that. Didn't that include the assault weapons ban in it?
The Brady
That
bill?
was a separate. It happened, but it was separate.
Yeah, it was separate.
I thought it was attached to it, to be honest with you.
No, the big thing that a lot of people like to say that was attached to the crime bill, the '94 crime bill specifically, because a lot of people like to use it as a bludgeon to attack Bernie too, and be like, oh well, he voted for it too. Bernie was voting for it because they attached the Violence Against Women's Act to it, and he said, well, I support the Violence Against Women's Act to it, Violence Against Women's Act, and this is kind of puts me in. It puts me in a position where they're going to run against me if I don't vote it, and they're going to say specifically, you didn't vote for the Violence Against Women's Act, even though you said you supported it. It basically could become a bludgeon for him. So he was like, well, I'm put in this position where I have to vote for it.
I mean, to be fair, right? Like, I know you're a Bernie supporter, but like, don't you kind of look at that and you're like, like it's.
He's been vocal enough. Like, he's been vocal enough on it to warrant, because even before and after he voted for it, there's speeches of him saying that the '94 crime bill is a mistake, and he's literally saying over and over again that I'm only voting for this for the Violence Against Women's Act, and then he predicted exactly what was going to happen from the crime bill, and it did.
What was even in the Violence Against Women's Act? I mean, it seems like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you're allowed to, domestic abuse is legal. Like, clearly it wasn't. So, like, what I'm clear, and I'm sure it was,
So part of it actually had requirements for colleges, because this is actually my dissertation topic.
Okay, interesting.
Ooh,
yeah, so it actually identified 3 different segments for sexual assault, domestic assault, and dating violence.
Mm-hmm.
And then it outlawed, or not outlawed, but it said, okay,
no,
if
I didn't
you're
get fired. I left my job.
Public funding, which pretty much all of them
It was
do.
a very toxic place.
These are
one of
the
those places that basically don't fire you, so they
into
don't
the
have to pay you
Clery Act,
unemployment.
It kind of got added
they
onto.
pushed me
They're
out.
connected now. And the Clery Act is certain things, like if you've ever been to a university, now whenever something happens, they have to send an email or text out to everyone. That's a federal mandate. It also says that universities have to make public their sexual assault statistics, and you can find all that online. It's absolutely free. That's the entire source for my dissertation. Yeah, that has to be done. If you don't, they find you really heavy. So if you misrepresent a single stalking charge, which you could argue if stalking is super serious or not, they charge the university $100,000.
That's capitalism,
for every
baby.
time they find that they didn't put it in the report.
That's why I'm here.
There's one university, I can't remember if it was in Pennsylvania. I think it might have been Penn State. They got fined $3.2 million for misrepresenting their sexual assault statistics, which is in part to what the Violence Against Women Act requires.
Didn't it also clear some funding for women's shelters? I think it did.
It might have. Mine was on reducing sexual assault on college.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I wouldn't have looked into that.
But no, that's interesting. I did not realize that. But I mean, with that and everything that you said, I mean, name off the negatives for the '94 crime bill. Those are some big negatives. And so to say you know what, I'm going to trade this off of that. You know what I mean?
Causing us to be the most incarcerated country in the world.
Yeah, I have it pulled up right here. $9.7 billion for funding for prisons.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's so, for him to say, well, you know what I mean? Look, I love Bernie. He's the most authentic candidate in the race, excluding Andrew Yang. Thank you. But
Marianne Williamson.
But
you're gonna say Marianne Williamson's not
wait
authentic?
for the but.
She's authentic.
You know what? I thought she was solid, and then I saw that Anderson Cooper interview that she did, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I totally changed my mind on her. I was like, okay.
She's not a great candidate, but she is who she is.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
The anti-vaxxer, depression, clinical depression is some bullshit, diagnosis. It's fucking crazy. But anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of where she lost me, is the stuff about depression and, you know.
Yeah.
I guess, but just with Bernie, like, I just, you know, you like, he's authentic, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, he's definitely a politician. I mean, he still has that side of him. He's been in the business for a long time.
I ironically
like, even
love
the comments
her.
about kind of implying that, you know, like, just so you guys know, like,
things.
the Elizabeth Warren corporations, you know, trying to position himself as being more left than her and less intertangled with corporate interests. I mean, he's a politician, and I get it. Like, I don't think he's doing anything wrong. He's doing what he has to do to get nominated. But when I hear things like the '94 crime bill, but it was for this, the domestic, what is it? Sorry, the Domestic Abuse Against Women's Act or something like that, right? I'm sorry, I should know this.
The Violence Against Women's Act.
Violence Against Women's Act. You don't think it's a little bit cringe? I mean, I get it, you're a supporter, but like, you know, you don't think you should be held accountable for that at all?
Well, he voted against the '92 crime bill, which was essentially the same minus the Violence Against Women's Act being put in it. So
right, but that doesn't change like the point. Right?
Why
it's
not?
Like, okay, if you give me this violence against women's, and you know what? Yeah, the for-profit prisons, I'll live with it. You know,
if,
like,
okay, let me put it this way. Let's say that right now Mitch McConnell decided, okay, I'll give you your Medicare for all, but I'm going to attach it to basically allowing the president to declare war whenever he wants. Like, Bernie's probably going to vote for it.
I'll take that in a second.
Exactly. It's essentially the same thing, you know, and also politically it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea to vote against something like the Violence Against Women's Act, which can be literally used as a bludgeon. Like, imagine if he did that now. He's already being called a misogynist by very disingenuous centrists. Imagine if he voted against the Violence Against Women's Act, no matter where it's put, because that's not how they're going to say it. They're going to say he voted against the Violence Against Women's Act, even though he was a large supporter of it from the beginning. You know, imagine if he voted for that or voted against that. They would use that to beat the hell out of him.
The better analogy is if you said Mitch McConnell said, "Okay, we'll give you the healthcare for all undocumented immigrants day one," then people are going to say like, "No, fuck no, we're not going to do that." That's the better analogy, because you're basically saying, okay, we're gonna do this Violence Against Women's Act, but then we're gonna do these for-profit prisons that essentially creates this complete prison industrial complex that unfairly targets African American men, like a trade that you should even entertain.
I mean, I don't know. I give him a pass on it because he denounced it before and after voting for it. I mean. He didn't vote for it in '92. I mean and he's talking about like getting rid of it and undoing it even now. He's talked about the long-term effects of it, and he was right. That's got to count for something. And
I guess it does but when you vote but then when somebody says, "Oh, that's a great point, but wait, you voted for it?" You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, my point is not to like down Bernie. I'm just saying, like, I'm going back to the whole, like, I feel like sometimes, like, don't you think all of us, including myself, like with Andrew Yang, like, aren't we always in the danger, like just with these tribal politics, like in danger of finding ourselves, like, you know, protecting our candidates a little too much in all areas? I mean, I know I for sure do it with Andrew. I'm sure I do it with Andrew.
I mean, there are some people that definitely... There are definitely some people who do that too much. I can agree with that. But largely, that's what a primary is for. Like, a primary is to set these different candidates apart and decide which one is going to be the best candidate. So we need to have these discussions to actually further that idea of who's the best candidate.
Well, that's fine to have the discussions, but you should also hold your own candidate accountable. You can still think...
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of things that... There's plenty of things that I hold him accountable for. There's some blind spots for him. I can definitely acknowledge that. He used to not be very good
I'll give you my favorite Andrew Yang blind spot, and you can give me your favorite Bernie blind spot.
Okay.
Go first.
Oh,
Okay.
the setup. Good
Before
lord.
we do that,
I had
hold on
to-
for a sec. Isn't this blind spot exactly what broke up Hassan and Destiny? Isn't that the exact conversation?
I think that was
Kinda.
more about ideological purity.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it was about ideological purity, but also Destiny went as far as to defend things like the 94 crime bill, and then like completely misrepresented what Hassan was saying, to even say things like, "Oh, he said he would never call the cops," even though he said, "Yes, I would call the cops." Just it was a whole thing, and Destiny read very bad faith readings at everything that Hassan was saying, which is literally what he's doing right now with anyone on the left. It's all bad faith readings of what he's being told. So yeah, that was the big thing.
Okay, sorry. Memeing over. You can go.
That's fine. Gave me some time to kind of try and think about what my favorite one is. I mean, because there's a few. The one right off the top of my head is, I mean, he's been better about it lately, but his past history on his views of Israel weren't great. Like I said, he's been a lot better recently supporting BDS, and he was really slow to defend Ilhan Omar when those texts came out. But he's doing it now, so I'm just kind of going, okay, that's all right, because I mean, it's not like any other candidate is coming out in support of BDS the way he is.
Wait, who are we talking about?
Bernie.
Bernie.
Yeah, that's a big hang up I have with him.
Gotcha.
I've got to go now, by the way, so I'll see you guys later.
All right, good talking to you, man.
Yeah, thanks for
All right.
stopping
Hey,
by.
great talking to you, man.
Adding some international flavor to the conversation. That's cool.
Yeah, alright.
Totally.
See you.
See you. Yeah. And by the way, if you guys have anybody else you'd like to invite to chat, go ahead and do so. It's fine.
Cool.
Let me see.
Well,
if
you
there's...
went, so I should go. So, I mean, I think I realized I kind of spoke about it before. So, he is for sure, he has said unequivocally that he's for universal healthcare, but or healthcare for all. But again, I just want to hear more details about it and
what he
essentially how it's
means
gonna be
by
paid
it.
for. I mean, I think, yeah, no, to be fair, like, I mean, look, I don't think he's gotten into the details as much as Bernie has. But I think also part of it is it's not his primary platform, right? Like, that's not his thing that he's really trying to push through. So, you know, I get it.
Yang is bad.
But, you know, he's in the future, he's going to have to get more detailed on that because that clearly is an issue that people care about.
Yeah,
But
because
are we to the point? Sorry, I'm going to butt in here a little bit.
Go
Are
ahead.
we to the point in the primaries where candidates shouldn't be single issue candidates anymore? Like, can we still swing single issue candidates?
100%, completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. And
Yeah.
by the way, like, second debate, like, I know for people who have been closer to the process and, you know, closely watched debate one and have been watching all the other kind of speeches and interviews on the side, like, you know, Yang basically, I think for my friends who are on the left who kind of, you know, if they had criticism, they're like, dude, every answer came back to UBI. And
really did.
Here's just like, well, so here's like a little bit of an explanation behind that. So the thought goes, debate number one for him was clearly a disaster. He kind of just assumed that eventually he was going to get enough questions, but he didn't want to go into attack mode, which might have been his mistake. But then the questions that he got, I can't remember what the first one was, and the second one was on fucking China. He got the China question. Of course he got the China question.
That felt a little weird, didn't it?
It's definitely weird. And
so I was watching that, I was just like, why?
Yeah, no, for sure. And so for debate two, basically, and by the way, I'm not an insider in the campaign. I don't know this for sure, but it was clear what he was doing. So he sat down and said, we don't know what's going to happen in debate two. We have to retake control. We cannot rely on these folks. Because, you know, when he talked about UBI in the first debate, like, people were laughing in the audience, which is fucking crazy, right? And you could hear it on air. And so he basically said, like, back. We can't depend and rely on whatever questions the moderator asks us. And look, we're going to go through every single topic possible. We're going to have a 1 to 2 second bridge to try to find a way to tie it back to UBI. and we're going to basically force feed the public our Joe Rogan / Ben Shapiro interview on all the highlights of the UBI. And at the end, overall it was successful, but you did have some cringeworthy moments, like the climate change thing. I was like, oh my God, I was like face bombing my head, my Lord.
When they asked him a question about God, it was some form of foreign politics, foreign policy discussion, and I sat there and I was like, how is he going to tie this back to you?
No, it was Iran. Thank God he didn't.
Yeah, that's right. It was Iran. It's like, we should give Iran UBI.
Funny, like even his answer to that, I'm like, okay, foreign policy is not his. I think he's just started to like get into that. He's put out some stuff on his foreign policy, like very recently, more details. But for that answer, like he had that thing where he's like, well, I would re-enter the agreement, but I would actually negotiate some of the timing points just because some time has passed. And, I was like, that's a nice touch. Like he definitely, him and his campaign, like, I don't think that was off the cuff, but like, we need to add in like one little nuance point to make it seem like we really know what we're talking about here. But thank God he didn't take it back to UBI, my Lord.
Yeah, that was probably.
But yeah, I don't know. That's where it was coming from. But I think it was Middle America's point, the Middle Americans' point, that it's time that he's got to go he's got to offer more of his views on these other positions. I think he can for sure, and he's done it in these long form interviews. But I think debate 2 was by design. That being said, even though I think he can, he's going to have to execute in debate 3. Otherwise, to the Middle Americans' point, like there'll start to be some UBI backlash if people feel like they're getting too much of that commercial. I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's probably right.
I definitely sit back and like where I always stand when someone says, "Oh no, they do support Medicare for all." It's like you constantly have heard several people say, "Yeah, I support." Like Kamala says, "I support Medicare for all," and then she comes out with that plan where that's not Medicare for all. So when Yang says he supports Medicare for all, where the most progressive thing he has is not exactly very progressive, the UBI.
I think it's actually very progressive, but I think it's very progressive. I think it's a misnomer to people.
Not with the either or. Not with the either or. It's not. That I can't get over that.
At the end of the day, if you're a family making $50,000 pre-tax and you're bringing home $40,000 or $35,000 post-tax, and let's say it's you have yourself and a partner, you're now bringing another $24,000 after tax. Whereas the super rich guy, the Jeff Bezos guy, his spending is going to go up a ton if it goes up by 10%, let's say that bad. And he's only getting a measly $12,000 for his extra spending. That's what I mean. It's a absolute wealth redistribution in sheep's clothing. It's more effective because you can market as everyone's going to get the $1,000. Even you rich guys, so don't worry about it. Even like the upper middle class guys. On the right.
I know he doesn't want to believe it though.
But what it's really going to do is it's going to help.
He is smoking that Yang Gang crack.
From whom though? Where's this money coming from?
Oh,
he says a VAT tax.
10% it's a 10% VAT tax.
Oh, it's gross.
Yeah, it is.
Why is that gross?
A VAT tax is a terrible idea. Oh my gosh. Are you going to get rid of income tax, or we're going to add the VAT tax on?
He's going to add the VAT tax on.
So here's $1,000. Now, every time you spend money on something, you're going to be giving that money away back on everything that you buy.
That's what I said earlier.
It will raise the cost of everything necessarily. Like there's no other way around. That's the purpose.
Hear me out. I think when you hear the answer, I think you'll view it differently. I'm not saying you'll come around to it by any means, but like using the same example, right? So let's say there's a couple making $50,000 a year pre-tax. That's how much they're bringing in joint. After tax, they're bringing home $40,000, $35,000. From the $35,000, they get $1,000 a month each. So they're total $12,000 each, $24,000 total. So originally they're getting $35,000 after tax, and now they're getting $24,000 after tax, right? So their salary, their disposable income has essentially almost gone up by 75%, right? So let's say when they're getting that $35,000, they're spending all of it.
Well,
That
the
is-
And they
problem
lose it
is
all
you're
at the
getting
end of
more
the year.
disposable income. That's not disposable income then.
No, when I say disposable income, you can spend all your income. It just means disposable income that's just fine. Forget about the word disposable.
Okay.
Forget about that nomenclature. But if they were spending making 35,000 after tax before, presumably they're spending all of it, right? Because they have bills that they need to pay and they're not getting enough money. So if all their costs go up by 10%, worst case scenario, their costs just went up by 3,500 every year. 1,000. So that's a pretty fucking good deal. That is absolutely not regressive. That is a great deal for them. The other thing that he's doing on that 10% VAT, he is specifically, because again, you have to, like for me, it's like you have to go back to the intent of what he's trying to do.
Hold on, let's slow down a little bit.
Go
Why
ahead.
did their expenses only increase by 1,000?
35,000 because they're making 30. I'm just assuming they're taking home $35,000
Yes.
after tax, right?
Yeah.
So 10% of 35,000 is $3,500.
Where is that 10% coming from? Like that's what you're saying, that they're paying back in the VAT.
Right. That's the VAT, assuming it all hits them. Because the other thing that he's doing is, while it's a 10% VAT across the board, he is he's making the VAT 0% or much lower on everyday consumer packaged goods.
Yeah. So it's a progressive VAT tax. Right.
Progressive? Well, no. There's no such thing as a progressive VAT.
Well, it will
All
charge.
VAT taxes
He'll
so
create
then-
his own progressive system where some goods are priced at a
correct, and like so
premium level, and it'll be progressive.
be taxed at like 30% or 40% of the 10, and then it'll all average out to, the ideas will all average out to 10. But again,
Hopefully,
when you couple it with that 24,000, then all of a sudden, a VAT by itself, even if you structure it whatever way you want to, it's a regressive tax by definition. With UBI, once you couple it with that extra income, again, the lower income you're starting with, there's swing for you than folks that were already making like let's say $1 million a year.
It just
right?
sounds more and
That
more
$1 million
bad
a year,
the
using
more
that same
he talks
example,
about it. I'm
if your
gonna be
costs go up by
honest.
10%, okay, you're getting
I'm gonna be
you have to
nice.
do $100,000
He has talked a
presumably they're buying more luxury items. So
lot.
even if we get to that level, maybe it's more than 100,000, but let's say it's 100,000, 10% of $1 million, and they're only getting whatever, the 12, or if it's a joint couple, 24,000. So that's what I'm saying. It's a wealth redistribution mechanism in sheep's clothing, and it's easy to push through because you then, well, not easy, but you go to people and you basically say, like, look, Mitch McConnell talking in your ear if you're in Kentucky and you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, and he can say whatever he wants, but guess what? Like, it's tough to just argue against like $1,000. It's easy to kind of scare people into believing that the Democrats' healthcare plan is this boogeyman in disguise, and they're lying to yada yada yada. But they're saying, "I'm gonna give you $1,000 a month." There's no way you can fuck with that. Then,
but you can. It's so easy to.
Yes.
Because even with the progressive VAT system, whatever the premium tax, whatever you want to call it, that can be changed in a heartbeat. Like, even you write the law today, and then guess what? That number doesn't work out. Guess what's going to happen in the next Congress? What's going to happen with the next bill?
Okay,
well,
so
we need to increase the VAT.
So then the answer is, what happened to Obamacare? For any piece of legislature.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it'll get changed. Sure, absolutely.
So how are you going to sell that to
then how are you
Kentuckian?
going to sell? How do you sell that to? How do you sell universal health care when they say, well, what's
don't.
going to happen? The Republicans are just going to gut it if they win the next time around. It's the same for any of these things. What about free college? Well, free college, okay, fine, you'll get it for 4 years, and then it's just going to go away. Going to get rid of it. So why should we do it?
It's a lot harder to get rid of these social programs than it is to. That's why the ACA largely is still effective. They have to slowly cut away at it. But my big thing is, like you say,
what about Obamacare?
I just answered that. Yeah, they're slowly cutting it away, but they have not fully repealed it. It's a whole lot harder to repeal an entire bill like that than it is to, just kind of slowly gut it by, decreasing funding on it on the back end. But my big issue comes from where you said that the VAT tax is not a regressive tax, and you also said that there's no such thing as a.
tax. It's 100% regressive by itself.
Yes, it is.
There's
And I mean, even with the UBI,
definition.
it's still a regressive tax because you have to
No, it's
recognize that. No, hang on. You have to
I just gave you
recognize
the
that
math on
the 10% that the 10% affects middle and lower income people a lot more than it's going to affect those who are at the top. So that's how it's a regressive tax. It's
I know
always
that.
going to be a
That's the
regressive
definition
because
of regressive tax,
yeah. So
that
how
is a
isn't
definition of regressive tax, but the difference is you are also giving them $24,000. So it's like, yes, we get it. You have to pay $3,500. That is terrible. But to make up for your problems, we're giving you $24,000.
so then you're
So
not
that
like I said
$24,000
like I said earlier. I said this earlier. Okay, you're not getting the full $1,000 a month. So you're not getting the full 12,000 a year. You're getting that minus what you had to pay on the VAT tax.
At the so again, you're getting $24,000 and you're paying $3,500 for the VAT. So yeah, you're not getting the full 24,000. You are getting $20,500. Presumably for someone making $50,000 a year pre-tax, that's a pretty good deal.
Cool.
So,
So
is
then,
will a new car be at the 0 rate, or will it be at 100% rate, or whatever, 30% rate for the VAT?
I mean, I think
Because we have to think about this in terms. So you make $50,000 a year. You
100%.
need to buy. You
it's
have
a
expenses outside daily stuff.
It is a great point. It's a fair point. And the reality is, the honest answer is we don't know yet, right? Like, we haven't gotten to that level of detail. And when you put on tariffs, for instance, these Chinese tariffs, like, we hear the headlines, okay, Trump is putting on whatever, 10% on $300 billion of the last slug of Chinese goods coming in. Like, behind the scenes, there are all types of trials going on, arguments going on, where people are basically, various businesses are coming in saying, pleading their case why their goods should be exempted. And just like
he really does want to find a way to bash Bernie.
Let's say this VAT goes through and the UBI goes through at 10%.
We've already
you're going to have automakers come in.
You're going
to have
he's continuing to go
come in and basically say why the auto VAT should be lower, or I mean, in all cases they'll be arguing that it'll be lower than 10%. So it'll be a process, no doubt about it. But again, you have to kind of go back to the candidate and like trying to assume, like, what is this guy? What is he trying to do here? Is he trying to, come up with a sneaky plan to fuck over the little guy? If that's what you believe, then there's nothing I can do to convince you otherwise, right? But if you believe that, okay, this guy really is just trying to make the country a better place, and he is trying to help the little guy, and that's why he's doing this UBI thing. So you're like, okay, like the positive intent is there. And
there's a third interpretation. Considering he's a tech mogul, what usually happens with these tech guys is they kind of think that they invent a thing that already exists and more or less capitalize on it in a new and much more disastrous way, like, say, Uber capitalizing on basically illegal taxis, for example, various things like that. I think he believes he may be helping the little guy, but he might not recognize that his idea is actually as helpful as it is. It's actually much, he might think that it's much more helpful for him to get rid of the social safety net. I mean, there's a lot of Republicans and conservatives who believe that too.
He's not trying to get rid of the social safety net. He's giving people the choice. And look, that's a fair criticism. I hear where you're coming from. You said that multiple times tonight. Like, why do we have to give those folks a choice? And look, he's done things as much as he can. He's like, okay, veteran disability, we have to have that stack on top of UBI. I've heard people's concerns. I get it. Like, you served the country, you made the sacrifice, like, you deserve to get both. Social Security, you've been paying Social Security taxes your whole life from 18 to 65.
But I keep hearing you on this, but I keep saying the same thing. Why not have both? There's absolutely no reason why we can't have both. Like I said, that's why a lot of Republicans, conservatives, and libertarians love Yang. It's because of this possibility that they can go ahead and destroy the social safety net.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there are some libertarians that I've come across that are Yang Gang, which I've
seen a lot on Twitter. Like,
for sure, but at the same time, there's a lot of folks who, like, I've read enough, and I came in super skeptical with this guy. And if it wasn't Yang, I'd probably be voting for Warren. So look, I'm not some guy who's like, oh, I'm crossing the lines, and I used to be MAGA, and now
No, I recognize that. There are a lot of left-leaning people who have taken the Yang, but I mean that doesn't answer my overall problem, which is he is on there talking about how it's a $5 billion boondoggle on Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin, who would totally love to get rid of the social safety net as a quote-unquote classical liberal who is basically a libertarian. Of course he's down for that. And you go on Rubin to make that case to people who already agree with that. It's not like he went on Rogan to make a completely different case, much like Bernie did, and actually converted people to being more leftist. But the thing is, I keep saying this, why can't we have both?
You keep taking the statement where he says, the certain government assistance programs are a boondoggle. The bureaucracy is a boondoggle. And then you are now conflating that and taking the extra mile and then putting the words in the mouth saying, let's do away with them. He's not.
Well, that's usually what what people mean, because they can't outright say we're going to get rid of the social safety net. They have to use this coded language like that. And he is a tech mogul, therefore he is inherently right wing. Like all those tech moguls are. They're just liberals.
Are you trolling?
No.
Where are you? By the way, where are you? Look, what part of the?
They're all capitalists. They're all capitalist millionaires and billionaires. How are they not? How are they not center right people? They might be left wing on social issues, but they're not going to be right. They're not going to be left wing on anything else.
I think that's a broad based, just kind of an irresponsible statement to make. To be honest,
do you think Elon Musk is left wing?
Absolutely.
How?
What?
He's a billionaire. You think of all the many labor practices. He's anti-union. He's anti-union for Christ's sake. How the hell is he left wing? He's the most anti-union person. Like him and Bezos. Do you think Bezos is left wing too?
I don't know about Bezos. I don't know anything about his politics.
There can't exist a billionaire who is left wing.
What about millionaires?
About Warren Buffett.
That's an obscene amount of money.
Warren Buffett is also fairly right wing.
Is worth millions of dollars. Elizabeth Warren.
He's worth $1 million.
About George Soros.
That is a 1 million more than me.
I mean, yeah, but he's still the poorest. He's still the poorest person in Congress. I mean, like I really hate the point that talking about how Bernie's a millionaire now, because essentially
you made the point that billionaires had to be right wing. So where do you draw that line where you have enough money, therefore your ideology has to be a certain way?
Well, I mean, you literally cannot be a billionaire without, capitalizing and exploiting the labor of others, basically stealing wages from us.
By that logic, you can't be a millionaire without exploiting people.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I agree.
That doesn't make any sense to me. So George Soros, you think, is a right-winger?
Yeah. He's a capitalist.
He's a Koch brother?
Huh?
Oh, the Koch brothers are right-wing.
They're libertarian.
Yeah, they're corporatists for sure.
Out, dude. I'm making a point. Like George Soros is the same as the Koch brothers, who are terrible people.
Oh,
I mean, they're slightly to the left of the Koch brothers.
George Soros is slightly to the left of the Koch brothers.
Yeah.
You're trolling, dude. You're just.
I'm not. How's that trolling? Like, legitimately look at their politics. You literally cannot become a billionaire without exploiting the labor of others. That is the most non-left.
You can't become one without being it, or you can't be one without being a billionaire. You can't be a leftist and a billionaire, or you can't become a leftist and a billionaire. It's two different things.
How is that two different things? Become or be.
Well, you can be one, but that doesn't mean that you were that way as you got there. Your project, you can start out right-wing capitalist, and then whenever you got all your seed money for your governmental coups, then you can become.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm asking you, like, are we talking about you can't be a leftist and a billionaire, or you can't be a leftist while you're becoming a billionaire?
Both. Essentially, once you hit the point where you have $1 billion, if you're purposely choosing to not reinvest it in any way to where you would no longer be a billionaire
Whoa. So
properly,
you're saying that the
like a
rich people
leftist would, an
have
actual
billions
leftist
of
would.
dollars in cash?
What do you think the William Buffett, the Warren Buffett, the Bill Gates billionaire pledges, where they basically pledge to give away all their money once they die?
Well, even not that. They're not
that's
literally sitting on cash. Like, they have money in assets, which are in companies, in stocks, in bonds, in mutual funds, in hedge funds. Like, they're not sitting on piles of cash. That money is in the market.
I mean, kinda. If you consider just the market Wall Street.
Well,
Well,
That's not
it's
the only market that exists in the United States, is it?
Is a company that makes ditch equipment. They're a public company.
Mhm.
They're right down the road from me.
Okay.
So I can buy stock in Ditch Witch, but I can also go down there. Like, it's real money. Like, it's real money. It's real jobs. It's real. I don't.
It's not really moving anywhere, though.
It's fake money because it's Wall Street. Well, it is moving because they're building things and they're selling things, and those things are getting used to build more things. Like, this isn't a zero-sum game here.
I mean, it kind of is. Because the amount that they're circulating doesn't circulate anywhere but upwards. It doesn't circulate downwards at all.
What?
It like goes slightly lower than them and then shoots back up. Because it's constantly investments in Wall Street.
I have $0. I can go to Ditch Witch and get a job for $12 an hour that gets paid by the profits from that company and the investment from the people like Buffett and billionaires are
cool.
using that to make that business. So I am actually gaining money. They're gaining money too. They're not taking anything from me. I'm gaining it.
I mean, that is a way of looking at it. But, I mean, you're essentially still accepting a job that is far below a living wage.
No, it's not. Not around here, it's not.
I mean, even where I live, and I live in the poorest city in the country. Like 12, and I just quit a job that I made $12 an hour. That is not a living wage.
Get out of the city. The city is the problem.
I didn't work in the city.
Well, you said you lived in a city, and $12 an hour wasn't enough. Well, it's because
we also have the lowest.
That's a different point.
We have very low cost of living here, with the exception of the water prices, but that's a whole nother thing. But our rent is very low because, like I said, we're a city full of poor people.
All right,
you know.
My hometown right now, you can buy a house for $9,000. Buy it.
It sounds very similar to Flint.
Two bedroom, 1 bath. You can buy it.
Sounds very similar to Flint.
That is definitely doable on $25,000 a year.
I mean, somewhat.
I mean, we're getting off the rails here, but if you don't provide $15 value, yeah, the value thing, I'm not even going to get into that. But these billionaires, so whatever their ideology is, where are we even at on this? Like, where are we coming from? Can Yang? So we started with these tech moguls were right wing. So whatever. That's really not even the point anymore.
I'm not sure how we got on this. The tech billionaires are cannot be leftist by definition, or any.
I can rephrase it if you'd like.
We just went round. We just went down a rabbit hole. That's all it was.
People frame Yang as a technologist, and he kind of frames himself that way too. But at the end of the day, the company that he was the CEO of and was sold is one that some of us know. It's Manhattan GMAT, which is a standardized test-taking company. That was sold to Kaplan, which I think most of us are familiar with.
Yeah, I do.
So that was his whole tech mogul experience, that he was, using the Kaplan software to kind of spy on us all when we were taking those fucking tests. But
cool stuff. Sounds like a great guy.
Well, I mean, look, you can be cynical. I mean, if you want to be cynical, that's fine. I mean, I get it. But
I'm sorry. I am inherently cynical of these tech moguls, and for good reason. I mean,
standardized. Well, you have to add standardized tech mogul to that. Who, by the way, I think when they did the net worth calculation, he's worth the least out of all the candidates that are remaining.
So what do we think about Google?
Less than Bernie Sanders? Less than Bernie Sanders, who only squeaked out of over $1 million because of his book, and will likely not be a millionaire by this time next year.
Yep.
Unless
Forbes
he
put it
wins
out there.
president.
I was actually surprised that it wasn't as high, but Forbes put it out there, and it was based off of their financial disclosure documents that they had to submit recently.
Okay, so I just looked this up for the net worth. This is from Forbes, so take that as you will. Andrew Yang is near the bottom. Out of all the candidates that have,
including Bernie, right?
Next debate, I think Julian Castro hasn't made it yet, which means he is. Oh no, Pete Buttigieg is the lowest, but he's a mayor.
Yeah, and I kind of see that with Buttigieg, and I mean, I think that's going to change for him.
Yeah, for sure. With all the candidates, right? I mean, even if you're an outsider, even Marianne Williamson, right? Like if it's not
with Pete specifically, because Wall Street has really taken to him. Like they've already been investing tons of money into him and meeting with him.
Buttigieg.
Yeah, Buttigieg. Yes. His donations are huge.
Yeah, and a very small amount of people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cynical of the guy, but like after he sold Manhattan GMAT, he ran a not-for-profit for the whole time until he decided to run for president. So that's his evil history, if you will.
I'm surprised he's still running then. I assumed he had more money and he was self-funding.
Oh, I mean, no, he was not self-funding at all. He's not. He hasn't put any of his own money into the campaign.
That really makes me think he's probably going to burn out soon.
Oh, so that's why he's scraping by, man. He has more donors than you know what? I don't know if he has more. No, he doesn't. Does he have? Wait, I'm trying to ask the guys on my stream. How many donors does he have relative to the rest of the field? Like, if it's not second higher than Bernie, and if it is higher than Bernie, it's at a much lower.
It's not second highest to Bernie, because second highest to Bernie is Warren.
No, I'm talking about the number of individual donors.
Yeah, still, that's what I was answering. Warren is second.
Yeah. Okay.
And it also becomes really a kind of wishy-washy game, because there's bundlers that, they package very small donations, but they're still from large single, where it really comes from is individual donors, which is the hard thing to prove. But, Bernie's is easy to prove because it's coming from all over the country.
Yeah, so I'm looking at something from the New York Times. They kind of made a heat map of institutions, and Bernie Sanders is pretty much everywhere. You can even see with Pete, there's the only purple blip is in Indiana.
Yeah, and there's Warren in second. In order to make it make sense, they have to take Bernie out of that one, or they have to take Warren out of that one, and there's one that shows Warren. Because, it would just look like a mess, because a lot of people are donating to Warren, too. It would just look like kind of a gross mess with the colors, because of how much it would mix in with, yeah.
Yeah, they should have given Warren a different color on this map. But based on the number, I mean, Sanders has 80% more than Warren or something, just ballparking.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, look, guys, I have to go, man. I'm on East Coast time. I have work tomorrow, bright and early. But it was awesome talking to you guys. It was great.
Fair enough.
Remember to follow your streams and check it out, and I will be happy to promote them as well to my followers as well. Man, it's great talking to you. Yeah.
Let me look you up real quick. What's your?
Yeah, please shout it out.
Yeah, it's M. Your chat, but it's MJB2sfm. So no shit you not. I've only been on Twitch for a month and change. I did this because I was trying to prove to my friends who are, I would say, even more progressive than. I'm sorry. Sorry. What was the Bernie supporter? I'm sorry. I don't mean it in a derogatory way. What was your username?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Marc Monkey? I just gave you a follow.
So I have friends who are basically kind of professional. I make fun of them. They're like professional activists, and so they hump the whole activist Twitter game. And I've basically been telling them for months that they should get on Twitch and get on kind of the early the one of the early floors before it explodes in terms of political chats. And
Yeah,
so,
it's
I
a
started
safe
with-
haven for the left for now.
Well, yeah, no,
Really?
for sure.
Yes.
Well, I get a lot of MAGA
Thanks
folks,
for the
but I will
follow.
say even the MAGA folks are actually they're pretty tolerable on my stream. I'm not gonna lie, they're actually
Same.
I got
They-
lucky. Pretty intelligent folks.
I've had some pretty gross ones, but I mean I've been doing this for a while, so
Yeah. I hear ya. Well, yeah, man. I mean, so yeah, no, I've just been doing this for a month and a half, and then good group of followers, and so just fucking continue to pump it out. But I'm only doing it at 11 p.m. Eastern because I have 3 kids. So
Fair
if
enough,
you guys are on, and so definitely make sure to promote your channels for sure.
at least if I'm while I'm doing the old job search, I'll be on most nights this week, trying to maximize having some sort of income, hopefully.
You know, I hear you. Well, look, if we once Yang wins the nomination, Monkey here, completely welcome into the Yang Gang with open arms. I will, regardless of what the other Yang Gangers say, I will make sure that they welcome you.
All right.
Just-
That's fair. Oh god.
we came up with a phrase on our chat, so like I'm sure you guys have been super annoyed, especially if you're a Bernie supporter. Like somebody does a Bernie post and there's 5 million Yang Gang people on there. Like we came up with a phrase for that. It's like when someone goes on, makes a post, and all the Yang Gang folks appear on Twitter. It's like we call it getting Yang banged.
Oh shit! Even
really
just posting anything about Yang, you're rip your mentions entirely.
That's right. So for all you guys who are still in this chat, consider yourselves Yang banged. Okay.
Hit me again, Daddy.
There you go. If you come to my stream, there's more where that came from.
All right, man.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Good night.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.